Okay, today's story, talking about purging in fire. Wow. About this. This is a story actually with an opinion. I'm trying to gather stories of Rabbi. I didn't have time. I'm trying to listen. There was a 3-hour Fabrengen. People told stories, but stories of his greatness is something I want to share with you. That's also important for Fabrengen. The stories I want to say here in the morning are stories which I've heard of. This is a very sharp story, my friends, that this is not for you and I to do, but there's a lesson here. Like in the Pinya course, Pinya was, who has to say a Bainini, but he was a very high level. This was a guy that worked constantly on himself. His Kabbalah's oil was extraordinary. Just a little story here about Pinya and Rabbi. This is it's Chayel Toshin Yudalit, 1954, was the year of Chassidic. And I want to tell you that in those days, even in my day, Chaim's day also, Chaim only a year later, it was not uncommon that Chasnas became Fabrengens because the Chassan went home. But they were Fabrengens. They wanted that. They were much smaller in those days, and the Chasnas should be an opportunity for strengthening Chassidim, and they would sit down after. The dancing didn't go on endlessly. Dancing ended, and then they put the tables together and Fabrenged. This was common. So the earlier back you go, the smaller, more intimate, the more every bar mitzvah, chasna was an opportunity for Fabrenged. So obviously, the Chassidim Fabrenged, his chasna. The next morning his chasna was Thursday night of Chai Elul. That Friday morning, the only Bocher at Seder was Pinya Korf. The Rebbe came into the Zal, peeked into the Zal on the way to his office. He sees Pinya sitting there. He says, you're the Terchetrim's Ben Yochid, you're Yeshiva's only child. Ben Yochid is an endearment. Ben Yochid, only child, of course, is a very special thing. We should be blessed with many children, but it's a special. So that's Pinya. He was also there all night for Fabrengi. But he was there to say the Chassidus. His Kabbalah's oil was unbelievable. The man pushed himself 24/7. He's skafia on every level, food, drink, his eyes. I tell the story here. I'm just reading his Nekvach Chabad interview. One of his sons-in-law wrote about him. Listen to it. Just before I tell the next story, it's important to get this. Ron, you can hear it, but the guys can hear the story and will enjoy it. What kind of level this Pinya Korf is. An example. One of his daughters befriended a girl. I think she was an orphan. And the girl moved into the house for a few months, helping this girl out. So one Shabbos, this is after a few months that the girl is there. One Shabbos at the Shabbos table, so the Pinya is saying, he hardly spoke English. He lived in this country for, 75, 80 years, face. He hardly spoke a word of English. So, so he's speaking in Yiddish at Vatayra. So, and he says to his family, maybe someone will translate it for the guest. He thought this girl, he just come to the Shabbos table as a guest. He didn't know that she was in his house for the last few months. A snapshot of opinion. Now, having said this, now the story. This is December, Tavshayin Gimel. Tavshayin Gimel is what year in English? 10 years ago. 7 years ago.
8 years ago.
This summer, it's a Shabbos afternoon. It's a sharp story, and I told you this introduction. It's not for you and I, this avodah, because you got to hold by it. And you have to know who and when, and you have to have a sensitive sense of smell which we don't have. Pinya did. So this is the story. Shabbos afternoon, and the Pinya's walking up Kingston Avenue. I guess he finished davening. It's late in the afternoon, and he sees two Jews standing. One of them is in the Lubavitcher, tied in Shabbos clothes, and the second is a Yid, a non-observant Jew, and he's smoking a cigarette. It doesn't say, but I think he may be an Israeli. Also Israelis are different. Also, they can take it. It doesn't say so. So he approaches them, and he approaches the fellows smoking a cigarette. He says to them, "Good Shabbos. Today is Shabbos. The Shabbos we don't smoke." The Lubavitcher, who he's talking to, says to the Pinya, he's not Torah yet a mitzvah, but he's getting closer, he's being discarded, but he's not at the point of Shabbos observance. So Pinya smiles and says, "It's all very good, but on Shabbos we don't smoke." So this fellow puts the cigarette aside, and he said, "Are you really saying it's because you love me?" And he says, "Of course. If that's the case, would you give me a hug?" That's how he was moved by this. Not even get angry. "Would you give me a hug?" The Pini gives him a big hug on the street there. He says, "Of course." And he gives him a big hug. And then this fellow says to him, "I'm ready to stop smoking Shabbos if you're alone with me." Bekviyut. So in case he's Israeli, we'll have a set time to learn. The Pini said, "Of course," and that's what happened. And he had with this fellow. So this is an example, learning in the Maimer of the fire of the Gevurah of Malchus, the fire of Malchus that engages the world and elevates it. This is an example of that kind of thing. Okay, friends.